Now, the first thing that anyone is going to see when they're working on this application, whether they're checking it out for the first time to contribute to it, or if you're coming back a year later and trying to pick up where you left off with the application, the first thing they're going to see is the README file. So that's what we're going to start and make. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to create a readme.md file. And I've already made one, so I'm going to paste it in and we can look at it together and see what I think is important. The very first thing is the application's name, but immediately following that, we have two images here, one showing the build status and one showing the license. And you're probably familiar with this from other repos that you've seen. These are essentially going to be showing these little badges right underneath the top. So you can quickly see if the latest tests are passing, if the application is in a stable state, or if there's anything else that needs to go there. For example, we're putting the license because this is an open source project and we can make that clearly visible. There's going to be other things you can show on here as well. But the license and the build status are basically the two common ones that any application can have. So immediately following that, we're going to be including a little description, a little blurb of what the application is, so that anyone coming in can take a look and within a sentence, 2 sentences, a paragraph, figure out exactly what the application is and if it's something they think it is, if they need to contribute to it, or if maybe they're looking for something else entirely. Now, with all of this, they can see that the application is in a good state and they know what the application is. So we come on to the installation steps. The very first installation steps actually happen before you even get to your application. You need to make sure that people have the tools they need to actually run your application. So in this case, for a Laravel application, we're expecting people to have Git, Composer, and Node.js installed already. And it might be given to you working in the Laravel space that you need these tools readily available, but people come in and work on projects having not been familiar with that ecosystem before. It happens all the time in open source, but it also happens in commercial environments. You have people from other teams trying to contribute a feature here or there, even if they're not super familiar with the application, if they have a bit of time. And so you need to make this really, really clear to them. In this case, we're going to mention these 3 prerequisites, but we're also going to have links to them so they can click through those links and they can get directly to them, set them up as they want on their own system, and go from there. After that, we're going to tell them to get the application running, you need the following commands. And there's lots of ways you could do this. You can have bullet points or whatever. In this case, I'm just putting it all in a single big code block with comments to split up the different sections so they can understand what the different sections are. So the very first step is clone into the repository and navigate into its directory, as you might expect. You then need to install the Composer and NPM dependencies. You can then build the assets with NPM. You can then create an environment file and generate an application key. And these are crucial steps that I think lots of people miss. You kind of expect to have to do this with a Laravel application, but don't see it in many instructions for installation. And I think the reason for this might be because when you run Laravel new, it does these steps for you and it creates the environment file and it generates the application key. But if you're just checking out the repo fresh, it doesn't make these steps, so you should probably include them. After that, we're going to say run the database migrations. And the reason we're doing this directly is because the default env example is going to be pointing to SQLite, so it should all be set up for us. Then we can also say seed the database with sample data, and we're going to make sure that our database seeder, the class that gets run without any parameters on this dbseed command, that's going to have some sensible defaults for us to use later down the line. And then we're also going to make sure that the public storage symlink is set up and that it's writable as well. So now we've got that, someone can come in, they can check out the application and run all of these commands. They could just copy and paste this entire code block in order to get running, and they don't really have to think about anything. One thing I do want to note here is that on any of these code blocks, GitHub flavored Markdown lets you give a language here. So you could type PHP here and then everything would have PHP syntax highlighting. I'm just going to put sh on all of these because then it's going to get basic shell syntax highlighting. And these are all basically bash or shell commands that we're running. So it's just going to help it look a little bit nicer, especially if we have some more complex commands in there later down the line. After we got it all set up, we can go into running the application. So to start the application locally, run php_serve. If you want to automatically recompile assets when they change, run npm run dev. Pretty simple. And then open your browser and navigate to this URL in order to get to the application. That's basically all you need to know to get started with the application on your own machine. I'm going to go with the last thing here and say, out of the box, if you want to run the application's PHP test suite, run this composer test command. And this is something that comes with Laravel out of the box. We can go down into the script section, and there is this test one that will run artisan config clear and then artisan test. Artisan test is going to run pest or PHP unit depending on what you've got set up. So now that we've got this, we've got a good starting point for anyone else to come in and help contribute to our application.